Shall I start, sir?
Okay, very good afternoon. Now I would like to introduce one of the eminent personality, more than 20 years experience in the plant sciences. Especially, Madam has given her valuable services to the young aspirants, those who are already gained and joined in the different universities in PG Botany. So that is none of the other than Dr.A.KAVITHA Madam Garu, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, RBVRR Women's College, Autonomous, Hyderabad. Today onwards, Madam is going to explain about Pteridophyta, one of the most important area in CPGET 2024. In previously, more than 6 questions has come. 6 questions has come from the Pteridophyta. So that's why. So Bryophyta and Pteridophyta most important. Bryophyta next class. Our Dr. A. Shailaja Madam Garu will going to take Bryophyta class. Now our Madam is going to take the session in Pteridophyta. Madam, please welcome. I have given you chance to sharing option. Please share your screen and start your session. Please welcome.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much, sir, for your introduction. Good afternoon to all the students who are there present in this meeting. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of our online coaching. So I'm going to start with the Pteridophyta topics. So just we have the glance on today, the general characters. And from next class onwards, we'll start with the type studies. So just I'm start sharing my screen. I hope the screen is being shared.
Yes, madam. Please click on slideshow.
Screen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, madam. Please.
Yeah. Right. So today we are discussing only about the general characters of pteridophytes. First of all, what do you mean by the pteridophytes? And what are the morphological characters and what are the habit where these plants are going and what is the dominant phase of the plant? Everything we'll discuss today in this general characteristic features. So first, when we talk about the pteridophytes, these are the group of plants which comes under the lower plant group. So as the entire plant kingdom is divided into several classes, like they'll be divided as algae, fungi, bryophyte, pteridophyte.
Your voice is not clearly audible, madam. If
hello,
now your voice is not clearly audible, madam.
Okay, I just wait a minute. So now is it clear? Hello, can you hear me?
No, madam. Please, if possible, please rejoin because of your voice is very low.
Okay. I'll rejoin again. I'm just stop sharing and rejoin.
Sir. Sir. Sir.
Okay, Naina.
Sir, it is audible now, sir. Madam voice.
Voice clarity వినబడుతుందా మీకు?
వినిపిస్తుంది సార్.
Right. Okay.
Madam voice వినిపిస్తుంది మాకు.
Sir, now is it clear?
Yes, madam. Yes. Please share your screen.
Okay, fine. Yes, sir. I started sharing my screen. Is it visible?
Okay, ma'am. Proceed.
Yeah. Thank you. Fine. So now we are discussing about pteridophytic plants. So these are the plants which comes under the lowermost group of plants, which are commonly called as vascular cryptogams. So we can consider these pteridophytes as the first land plants with vascular system. That is till now, that is up to bryophyte, we can see the plant absorbing the water either through roots or rhizoids, and it has been taken up and it been conducted throughout the plant body to the through the cells and all that. There is no proper vascular tissues or the cells present in the lowermost plants. But pteridophytes are such a group of plants where we can clearly see the formation of vascular tissues, the so-called xylem and the phloem. Okay, so that's why we call them as vascular cryptogam, the first plants with a vascular system. Now, and apart from that, these pteridophytes, they are going to have a beautiful leaves, which are like feather-like leaves. So you can look into the picture over here. The they are very long, lanceolate. Okay, we can see here the leaf structure. It is in the, just like a feather of a bird. So that's why they are commonly called as fern plants. So all these pteridophyte plants, what we discussed, they are commonly referred to as fern, F-E-R-N. That means they have feather-like leaves. And these pteridophytes, they also include living as well as the fossil cryptogams, that is vascular plants, representing about 400 genera and 10,000 species, including both living and fossil. And the another most important point of the pteridophyte is the plant body is considered as the sporophyte. This is a very, very important point. The dominant phase of the pteridophytic plants is sporophytic plant, sporophyte. Whereas when you go for the bryophyta, the dominant phase will be the gametophyte. Why plant body is a gametophyte? Because on the thallus itself, we can see the development of sexual organs. That is antheridia and the archegonia. They will be developing on the plant body itself. But in case of pteridophytes here, the plant body is going to develop spore-producing organs, the so-called strobili, sporangia, and the spores. That is the reason why the plant body is referred to as sporophyte, or the dominant phase is called as the sporophyte. In the due course of the life cycle, we can see the another phase, that is a gametophyte, but the adult plant of a pteridophyte is a sporophyte. This is a very, very important question in the exam point of view. And so this sporophytic plant, it is differentiated into stem, roots, and leaves. Up to bryophyta, we are naming the plant body as a thalloid plant body. There is no such development of the plant as such, like it is having the true root system or leaf or stem. We can't see such a development in the lowermost group of plants up to bryophyta. But from the pteridophytic plants, we can see the development of the plant, what we call it as the emergence of the plant into a complete plant body-like structure, having the roots, stem, and the leaves. And here, this plant, as it is developing roots, leaves, as well as the stem, the plant, as the leaf is the most important part, we all know that it is going to prepare the food material. So, the plant here, the sporophyte, the plant body sporophyte, it is independent. Okay, independent of gametophyte. That means to say the plant body itself, it can prepare its own food material and it is not depending on any other plant as such. So it is an independent plant. Whereas in bryophyta, this sporophyte was dependent on gametophyte. So remember these two terms. I'll repeating once again. In case of bryophyta, the sporophyte phase or a sporophyte plant body is dependent on the gametophyte in case of bryophytes. Whereas in the pteridophytes, it is independent because the plant body itself is a sporophyte. It can prepare its own food material. So that is the reason why it is independent. So I hope this slide is clear for you all. Next.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, clear.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next, so when we look into the pteridophytic habit, that is how the plant body is looking like. When we talk about this, majority of all the pteridophytes, what they are present in the nature, they all are, majority of them are terrestrial. That is, they are growing on the land surface. But there are certain group of plants which are aquatic also. But we'll see that. So, for example, if I talk about the examples like Coleotum, Selaginella, Lycopodium. So, these all you will be studied. You have been studied in your degree class. You studied about Lycopodium in your syllabus. And they are terrestrial. That is, these are the land plants. So, when I talk about the aquatic forms, that is the one which are growing in the water, the examples includes Azolla, which is called as a water fern. The common name of the Azolla, we call it as a water fern. That is, it is a pteridophytic plant, a smallest pteridophytic plant growing in the water surface. That's why we call it as water fern. Next comes to the Marsilia. Even this is also a hydrophytic, that is a water plant. Yeah.
Ma'am, what is meaning of water fern?
Water fern, common peru. Azolla ki common name.
Okay,
Water, it is a pteridophytic plant. Fern, pteridophytes ki fern ani cheppan kada. F-E-R-N. Commonly pteridophytes ni fern antam.
okay, ma'am.
So, Azolla is commonly named as water fern.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay?
It is a common name, ma'am.
Common name of Azolla.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, the pteridophytic, the smallest pteridophytic plant growing in the water. Example is Azolla.
Ma'am, these Azolla plants are growing only in water, ma'am.
Yeah, they grow only in water.
Not in land.
No. That's why we call them as aquatic.
Okay, ma'am.
Right? So, aquatic, example one is Azolla. Another one is Marsilia. Another one is Isoitis. You can see here. Below this plant, this is the water where they are growing. Okay? And
Okay,
another
ma'am.
best
Okay.
example is Salvinia. Okay. Next. So there are few examples of pteridophytes which are xerophytes also. I hope you all know what are xerophytes.
Yes, ma'am, we know.
Yeah. So one example of that is Selaginella species, which is called as Selaginella rupestris. This is an example where that plant belongs to the xerophytic habitat. I hope this is clear for you all. I repeat,
Yes, ma'am.
some examples of terrestrial pteridophyte. They are Coleotum, Lycopodium, Selaginella, some species of Selaginella plants. Aquatic forms are Azolla, Marsilia, Isoitis, whereas xerophytic plant is Selaginella rupestris. Now moving on to the plant here, that is regarding the habitat where they are growing. Now we look into the plant body, how it is. So the plant is going to have presence of stem and roots. Okay. And here the leaves plays a very prominent role here. So the leaves are in Equisetum plant, it is scaly leaves, that is somewhat they are reduced leaves. In Lycopodium and Selaginella, the leaves are very, very small and sessile. And whereas in the higher group of plants, the leaves are going to have petiolate and the compound leaves. The leaves are very, very large enough and they are petiolate. That is, they have a stalk of the leaf, what we call it as petiole. Next. So this is another important slide I want to discuss here is pteridophytic plants, that too the young leaves, that is the leaf which is just formed. These leaves, they show a very peculiar phenomenon which is called as circinate vernation. This is observed only in case of pteridophytic plants. Now, and that too in some angiospermic plants also this phenomenon will occur, but very peculiar to the pteridophytic plant. That is called as circinate vernation. Now, what do you mean by circinate vernation? You can look into the images here. The diagram, the images, what you can see here. A large leaf, generally these pteridophytes, they have very large leaves. So these leaves, when they are young, that is when they are not matured still, they are still young. And during that period of time, these are coiled inward. You can see here, they are folded inward. Until they'll be folding inside. So this phenomenon is called as circinate vernation, folding of or coiling of the young leaves towards inside. So this is a very good, important characteristic feature of the pteridophytic plants. Now, next, depending upon here, the leaves of these pteridophytic plants are classified as microphyllous leaves and the macrophyllous leaves. So depending upon the leaf structure. Now, what do you mean by microphyllous leaves? So these are the leaves which is going to have very simple and only a single vein in between them. So such a type of leaves are called as microphyllous. The leaves will be very small and having only a single vein in the center. So the best example we can tell is here is a lycopodium. What are macrophyllous here? So the name itself implies macro means large enough. So the leaves which are large and they are pinnatified. That means they are the compound leaf. That is, leaf is dissected into small leaflets. So example we can see here, it is in the terrace. So in the terrace plant, the large leaves are compound, they are pinnatified and having, and this will be going to have a series of veins. And they form a prominent leaf gap in the, we can see when we take the section cutting of the stem, we can see the presence of the leaf traces or the leaf gaps in the anatomy of the stem in this particular plant called as terrace. So depending upon the size of the leaves are called as microphyllous or the macrophyllous leaves. Now, next when you talk about the stem is usually branched. And this branching can be either monopodial or dichotomous branching. And the leaves and the stem, they possess small hair-like structures, what we call as trichomes. And in the leaves, we can see the presence of stomata, which were evenly distributed on both the surface of the leaf, that is, on the upper epidermis as well as in the lower epidermis, we can see the presence of stomata. And the root and stem, they have the well-developed vascular system possessing the vascular tissues called as xylem and phloem. And as they are the lowermost plants, though the xylem and phloem, they are present, we can't see the presence of cambium. Okay, and another tissue which is called as cambium, we can't see that as they are the first vascular plant. So cambium is absent and hence secondary thickening is also absent. One more point. An exceptional case here in the case of isoetis, the pteridophytic plant called as isoetis. In this, we can see a little bit of secondary growth. That's it. But majority of the vascular plant, that is majority of the pteridophytes they are primary only. They have only the primary structure, but not the anatomical structure. Next, when we discuss about the vascular system, that is the development of vascular tissues or the vascular cells, they are very well developed. And as they have the presence of xylem and phloem, the vascular structures, they constitute to the steel development in the anatomy. Now, depending upon what type of the steel is observed in the pteridophytes, the steel it is of protosteel in the case of lycopodium plant, siphonosteel in case of equisetum, dictyosteel in terrace, and polysteel in angiopteris. So what are these when we discuss about the type studies, that is when we discuss about lycopodium or equisetum, during that time, I'll tell you what do you mean by protosteel and the siphonosteel condition. Now, so how are these vascular elements are made up of? So when we see the presence of the xylem, so mainly the xylem cells here, what they present is presence of tracheids. And the phloem is going to be made up of sieve cells and the phloem parenchyma. So you can see here, these are only the first xylem cells which can be observed. That is in xylem tissue. These are the cells which can be seen, and these are of only primitive type. When we go for the angiospermic plants, we can see in the presence of trachea, xylem fibers, and all that. But here, these are the first vascular plants, only the primitive vascular structure can only be seen. I hope this is clear. I am clear for you all.
Yes.
Hello, am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, so what is the function of the xylem here? The xylem is helping in conducting water and the mineral salt. The main role of the xylem tissue is conduction of water and the mineral salts. Whereas the phloem, it is going to conduct the food material from the leaves to the remaining part of the plant body. Whereas the xylem, it conducts the water and the minerals from the root system to the remaining part of the plant body. Now, so when we talk about the reproduction here, so the reproduction in pteridophytes, it is reproducing by the presence of the spores. And these spores, they are developed in the sac-like structures, what they call as sporangia. And these sporangia, where they are developed on the ventral side of the leaf. So hence, those leaves are called as sporophylls.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, these points we have to write in book, ma'am.
No need, no need. Sir will share the this YouTube link for you all. This is recorded. Sir is recording this.
Yes, madam. Okay, Naina and other participants, don't worry. I will send this entire class in YouTube, and link will also share in our WhatsApp group. Okay, don't worry. Please listen carefully during the class. If you have any doubt, interact with our
Yeah.
respected madam. Please proceed, madam.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Just focus on the points I'll be repeating. Like I'll be telling these are the important points. Those points, please, you can note down.
Okay, ma'am.
Right? So just now I told you an exceptional case here, isoites, which is going to have the secondary growth. Okay, there are certain points which are important in the exam point of view. So those points you can please note down. Okay, they may be
Okay,
expected
ma'am.
in your exam.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. Okay, so these are all the regular terms used, but they can't be asked in your exam point of view, which are very, very important. Only that will focus. Okay. Right. Right. So you can see here in the aquatic forms like Marsilia as well as the Salvinia, these are the, what are these? These are the water, pteridophytic plants which are growing in the water. Okay, so these are the in these two plants, sporangia are present within a specialized structures called as a sporocarp. So you can please note down these points. Why? Because these are hydrophytes. Okay, in these hydrophytes, the leaves are not that much developed. So generally, sporangia produce sporangia are developed where? On the leaf. But as these are hydrophytes, they doesn't have well-developed leaf. The reason why these sporangia, what we are speaking about, the spore-producing organs, these sporangia, they are developed in the specialized structures called as sporocarp. We can also call it as fruiting body also. But instead of that, the name, it is a specialized structure producing or having sporangia. So that is a very important point to be noted. Okay. Now, so depending upon here, the development of the spores, the plants producing what type of spores? Based on that, the pteridophytic plants are classified as homosporous plants and the heterosporous plants. Homosporous, heterosporous. So what is the difference here? So the plants which are having homosporous, Examples here, you can take down the examples also, ma. Lycopodium, it is a homosporous plant. Pteris, it is a homosporous plant. Selaginella, it is an heterosporous. What is the difference here between these two? Homosporous means the plant which is developing or producing only one type of spore. Okay, so you can look into this here. Homosporous, the sporangia which is developing only a single type of spore. That type of plants are regarded as homosporous. They develop only either one type, either where the spores will be smaller or those spores will be larger. Immaterial what they are, but they produce only that entire sporangia will develop only one type of spores. So such a type, that condition is called as homosporous condition. And that plant is called as homosporous plant. Example here, I told you, Lycopodium and Pteris. Whereas heterosporous condition, what does it mean? Hetero means different. The plant which are having the sporangia, that sporangia will produce the larger spores as well as the smaller spores. Okay. Now, the sporangia are developing two types of spores. Okay. So here it is not a rule that the sporangia here, whatever is producing, it produce one, that is, it is producing only the micros, that it is producing both the two types of spores in the same sporangia. It is not like that. The sporangia here, which is producing only the small spores, that sporangia is called microsporangia. I repeat this once again. The sporangia here, which are developing smaller spores, we call them as microsporangia, and the spores are called as microspores. Whereas the sporangia which is developing large spores, that is, the size of the spore will be larger enough. So that type of spores are called megaspore, and the sporangia is called as megasporangia. So I repeat this once again here. If the plant body is producing microspore, megaspore in the respective microsporangia and the megasporangia, then that condition is referred to as heterosporous condition. So this can be seen only in the pteridophytic plants. Development of two different type of spores or two different type of sporangia. So this is seen only in pteridophytic plants. Now, depending upon the development of the sporangia also, the sporangia can be developed, so based on the development here, the sporangia can be of eusporangiate type and leptosporangiate type. Now, what does this mean? If the sporangia, so the sporangia which is developed on the leaf, if that sporangia is developed from a group of initials, that is, a group of cells which are transforming into a sporangia, then such a type of development is called eusporangiate. These 2 points you can take a screenshot or you can write ma. Very, very important. What is eusporangiate development? The eusporangia developing from a group of cells, a group of initial cells. Then, what is another one? Leptosporangiate. That is a sporangia which is developed from only a single cell. If it is a leaf locus cell, it will transform at the time of reproduction. It will grow and transform into a sporangia. So, such a type of development is called leptosporangiate. So, generally the students will get confused here. What is eusporangiate and what is leptosporangiate? So, I am making it clear. Leptosporangiate is the development of the sporangia from a single cell. Eusporangiate, the development of the sporangia from a group of cells. That's called as the eusporangiate type. Next. So, this is about the sporangia. Sporangia producing the spores and how the sporangia is developed. Now, these sporangia, where they are developed, ma? This sporangia, they are developed on the leaves. And these leaves, they are called as what? Sporophylls. A leaf which is bearing the sporangia, those are called as sporophylls. Now, so these sporophylls, they are aggregated together. That is, there are many leaves here. You can see these are all the leaves. On the leaves, the sporangia are developed. Okay, especially in case of compound leaf. Okay, these leaves, they are aggregated together and going to form a compact structure like this. This we call it as strobili or a cone. So this is observed in the examples like Selaginella, Lycopodium, Equisetum. Okay, what is strobili? A group of or aggregation of sporophylls. Spore producing organs are called sporophylls. All the sporophylls, they are joined together and forming a cone-like structure here. This is called as strobili. Now, so in the true fern, that is in the higher advanced forms of the pteridophyte, thus these sporangia, they generally developed. So you can look into this here. The dots, what you can see here. These are, so you can see here on the base of, so this is completely what we call it as sporangia. Okay. So in the advanced forms of pteridophytes, we can see the development of the sporangia on the lower surface of the leaf. Okay, so you can see here, this is the base of the leaf and all these sporangia, they are developed in a group. They're not single like this. They're developing in a group. This is called as sori or sorus. Now, so when we talk about the structure of a spore, okay, the spore is going to have a very thick wall, which is differentiated into outer exine and inner intine. And what is happening here? When the spores are developed and when they get matured, from the sporangia, the spores are released outside, and these spores, they are developing into the next generation of the life cycle that we call it as gametophyte. I repeat this once again here. The spores on germination, they will develop into the next generation of the plant, which is called as gametophyte. And remember here, I told you already, gametophyte here, it is independent. And sporophyte, it is also independent. They both are independent to each other. They are not dependent. Just like in bryophytes. In bryophyte, they are dependent. Sporophyte was depending on the gametophyte. But here in the pteridophytes, the sporophytic generation and the gametophytic generation, they are independent. So in the life cycles, you can see that as you studied in your degree, I believe. Now here. So the first formed gametophytic tissue is called as prothallus. That is, just after the germination of the spore, the first plant, whatever is developed, that plant we are calling it as prothallus. So you can look into this here, the structure. This is the prothallus. Gradually, this prothallus will develop into the adult plant. Okay. Now, so how is this prothallus here? You can see it is a simple thalloid plant body, which is green in color. And so what is this? Why it is green in color? Because it is having the chlorophyll and it is preparing the food material. That is the reason why it is an independent. Now, so when I talk about here, the prothallus, it will develop and produce a matured plant. In case of homosporous, suppose if the plant is producing only the single spore and single spore is developing into a prothallus, a next gametophyte, then that gametophyte will be monoecious. That means on the plant itself. That is, this plant is going to develop the male as well as the female sexual organ called as antheridia and the archegonia on the same thallus. Okay, that's why we call it as a gametophyte. What do you mean by gametophyte? Gametophyte is a thallus which is developing the gametes or the sexual organs. So in case of homosporous plants, homosporous developing only single spore, and that spore is germinating and producing the gametophyte. And what type of a gametophyte? Is it a male or a female? No, we can't say, because it is a monoecious. It develops both male as well as female on the same thallus. So that's why we call that condition as monoecious. Whereas in case of heterosporous type, that is, the plant is going to develop two different type of spores. One spore we call it as microspore, and another spore we are calling it as macrospore or megaspore. And always remember, microspore is considered to be as the male. Microspore will germinate and produce the male thallus, whereas megaspore, it constitute to the female. It will develop the female plant, that is female thallus. Why I'm calling it as male thallus? Because it develops male sexual organ, that is antheridia on it. Why I'm calling it as female thallus? Because the prothallus will develop the female sexual organ called as archegonia. So this condition is called as dioecious condition. I repeat this once again. Heterosporous plants will develop the dioecious prothallus. They are always dioecious. They develop, microspores will develop male thallus and megaspore will develop female thallus. So remember that, all of you, right? Now, when I talk about the antheridial structure, so I hope you all know this in Bryophyta, you will have studied. Antheridia, they are the club-shaped structures having the stalk and surrounded by a sterile jacket. And inside the antheridia, upon maturity, they are going to develop the male sexual organs, or sorry, the male gametes, what they call as antherozoids, which are motile, having spirally coiled two flagella. Whereas archegonia, these are the flask-shaped structures, which are also stalked, having a globose venter and a neck region. And they are going to develop the female gamete called as the egg. Now, at the time of fertilization, the antherozoids from the antheridia, they will swim and they are going to reach the archegonia. These antherozoids, they enter into the archegonia, where in the venter going to consist of the female gamete called as egg. Now, egg and the antherozoids, they are fusing to form the zygote. This we call it as fertilization. And for this purpose, water is the medium, or water is very, very essential for the traveling of antherozoids to reach the venter. Now, what is the zygote? The zygote is the first spell of the sporophyte. The zygote will develop into, it will divide and form the embryo. And from the embryo, by the differentiation, it will, that is the embryo, the sum of the cells of the embryo will form the root. And some cells of the embryo, they develop the shoot apex, that is the stem as well as the leaves. And here, look into this point. This is very, very important. The pteridophytes here, they are showing, you can note down these points, very, very important. In all the pteridophytes, we see the presence of heteromorphic alternation of generation. That means the sporophyte generation is completely different from gametophyte differentiation. That is, morphologically as well as physiologically, both these two generations or both these two plants, they are completely different from one another. Hence, that type of alternation of generation, we call it as heteromorphic. So you can note down this point or underline. Next, the main plant body in pteridophyte or the dominant phase in pteridophyte, it is a sporophyte. So this is also a very, very important point. What is the dominant phase in the pteridophytic plants? Gametophyte, sporophyte, both, or none of the above? The questions will be asked like this. What will be the answer?
Ma'am, what, ma'am?
What is the dominant phase of the plant body in pteridophyte? Is it sporophyte or gametophyte? Both, none of the above.
Ma'am,
What will be the answer?
sporophyte, ma'am.
Yeah, it is sporophyte. Okay, right. Next, another important point. In pteridophytes, the gametophyte and the sporophyte, are they dependent or independent?
Independent.
Independent, ma'am.
Independent with each other. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So here you can look into this, the life cycle. Okay. So ఇక్కడ చూడండి. This first box here, what is this? It is the sporophyte and rasan. Why I'm writing it as sporophyte? Because the plant body is the sporophyte. The dominant phase is sporophyte. Now this is sporophyte. It's going to consist of the leaves, the so-called microsporophyll, megasporophyll. It is a life cycle of a heterosporous life cycle. That means this plant is going to develop two different types of sporangia. What is that? The microsporophyll develop microsporangia, megasporophyll will develop megasporangia. From the microsporangia, what it will form? Microspores. It will develop, it will produce microspores. From the megasporangia, it will form the megaspore. I told you, microspores are called, microspore will develop what? It will develop male gametophyte.
Male gametophyte, ma'am.
Yeah, whereas megaspore will develop
Female gametophyte.
So on the male gametophyte, we can see the development of the male sex organ called antheridium. Whereas the female gametophyte will develop the female sexual organ called archegonia. So the male sexual organ antheridium, it will produce the male gamete called as antherozoid, and the archegonium possesses the female gamete called egg. So these both male gamete and the female gamete undergoing fertilization and forming the diploid zygote. Now this zygote up to here, so this part of this life cycle is completely of sporophytic generation. ఈ boxes ఇక్కడ right side లో ఉన్న boxes ఉన్నాయి కదా, all these of sporophytic generation. Now from zygote onwards, okay, it starts with the gamete of, here, ఈ microspore formation వరకు అంతా కూడా మీకు sporophyte. ఈ gametophyte నుంచి gametophytic generation. Okay, right. Now zygote develop అవుతుంది. This zygote is a starting cell for the sporophyte. Zygote develops into embryo. Embryo develops into an young sporophyte. Young one develops into the adult plant. Okay. Only here, male gametophyte, antheridium, and the gametes. Only this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is 6 boxes a gametophytic generation. Remaining anni kuda, these all are belonging to sporophyte. Andukani here in pteridophyte, the dominant phase, sporophytic generation chala untadi kabatti, this phase is considered to be as the dominant phase. Ardhamainda ee point?
Ma'am, I didn't understand, ma'am. Once again.
I am telling again. So look into this life cycle here. Just look this. Male gametophyte, female gametophyte. Antheridium, archegonium. Antherozoid egg. Okay, only these 6 boxes belongs to gametophyte generation. And the remaining all the boxes like sporophyte, microsporophyll, megasporophyll, sporangia, spore, embryo, zygote, all these boxes belong to sporophytic generation. ఇక్కడ ఎన్ని బాక్సెస్ వచ్చాయి చూడండి. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. And here there are only 6. Gametophyte generation is represented by only 6. Whereas sporophyte generation is represented by 10 boxes. ఏది ఎక్కువగా ఉంది? Sporophyte generation or gametophyte generation?
Sporophyte.
Sporophyte generation is
Sporophyte.
Sporophyte generation is more. So that is the reason why the dominant phase of the pteridophytic plant is the sporophyte. అర్థమైందా?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So this is about the general characteristic features of pteridophytic plants. So ఇంకేమైనా doubts ఉంటే please.
Okay. My dear friends, regarding of this class, if you have any doubt, please ask our madam. So madam is very clearly explained about the each and every important point regarding of our CPGET 2024. Definitely general characteristic features, more than 2 to 3 questions has come from this general characteristic features of Pteridophyta. And the life cycle of Pteridophyta is also most important. The most important points are here, especially some of the examples related to the water fan and what are the homosporous, what are the heterosporous plants of this Pteridophyta. So that these are the most important points. And also the fans, why we can call as the fans, the Pteridophyta plants also called as botanical snakes, why we are called botanical snakes. And also madam has clearly explained about the fronds, the why we can call these leaves of the Pteridophyta plants we can call as fronds. And also the sarcinate vernation, one of the important feature of the young leaves are coiled into a spherical structure that we can call as the sarcinate vernation. So this is the most important point in Pteridophyta. So these characteristic feature also we can observe in the gymnosperms also. So the sarcinate vernation also we can observe not only Pteridophyta but gymnosperms also. But it is starts from Pteridophyta plants. Okay. And also the sporophytic phase is very dominant phase in these Pteridophyta plants. Compared to the gametophyte, sporophyte phase is very dominant phase. Okay.
Sir,
Okay, Naina.
sir, can I ask madam doubt, sir?
Okay, madam is here. You can ask.
Yes, I am here. You can, please.
Ma'am, you said that microphilus and macrophilus, no, ma'am.
Yeah.
In macrophilus, what leaves you said, ma'am?
Microsporophylls. That means the leaves which are developing microsporangia.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, I told you now, there are certain pteridophytic plants which are producing 2 different type of spores. Microspores and megaspores, right?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
where these spores are developing in the sporangia. Okay, so the leaves which are going to have the microsporangia, within the microsporangia, the microspores will be developed. So such leaves are called microsporophylls. Okay?
Okay. Ma'am, once show the definitions,
Structure.
ma'am. Structure and definition.
So once a minute, I'm just sharing again the screen. One second, I'll show this. Right. So here you can see, this is gametophyte. So ikkada chudandi. So what I told you in the sporophytes, the leaves are the one which are producing the sporangia. Okay, our leaves name antamu sporophylls antam. So if the sporangia Suppose the leaf which is having microsporangia, and the sporangia which is producing microspores. Got it?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
So see here, sporophyll means what? The leaf having the sporangia. What type of sporangia they're developing? Microsporangia. Now, what type of spores do these sporangia develop?
Microspore.
That's why this leaf is called microsporophyll. Likewise, the leaf which is developing megasporangia, that leaf is called megasporophyll. And the spores are which they are developed here, we call them as megaspores. Clear?
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Right.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, I asked that in microphilous pteridophytes, ma'am.
I didn't get you.
Ma'am, I asked that you said no, ma'am. Based on leaf structure, pteridophytes are classified into microphilous pteridophytes and macrophilous pteridophytes.
That's the same thing I'm telling here. Macrosporophyll and microsporophyll. Based on the development of the spores.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So here I
Okay.
told you now these are going to develop spores. Okay. Homosporous and the heterosporous. So based
Yes,
on development of the spores only, we call them as microsporophyll and the megasporophyll. So you can see here, homosporous, heterosporous condition, and the spores which are developing them, we call them as microsporophyll and the megasporophyll. Clear?
Okay, madam. Thank you very much.
Right, sir.
Dr.
Just stop
Kavitha
sharing.
Madam Garu has clearly explained about the general characteristic features of the pteridophyta. Really, thank you very much, madam. Very crystal clearly explained each and every point and the most important points covered for the CPGET 2024, my dear friends. So, madam, thank you very much. Now,
Thank you, sir.
next
I'm
class we're going to start within 2 minutes, madam. Okay, madam. Thank you.